Today's album still divides fans of this legendary band, so join us as we journey back 40 years to 1986 and use a spot of randomness to revisit Raised on Radio. Hmm. There's a nice bit of alliteration to kick us off with. Hey, I'm Joe, or JSB, and I'm very happy to again be joined today by Tim Derling from Tim's Vinyl Confessions. Tim, always great to have you here. Welcome. And I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts and recollections about this fairly controversial album in the Journey catalogue today.
It's great to be here, Joseph. And yeah, it's funny. This album has seems to be in the ether right now because one of the last episodes that I posted on my channel was my chat with a guy named David James, who was promotion person for Columbia Records around the time that this album came out. So he worked with the band promoting this album. And I also had the privilege of speaking for an episode that's upcoming. I spoke to the author Paul Reese about his book, which is called Raised on Radio, The Golden Age of AOR, 1976 to 1986. So it seems I'm destined to talk about Journey's Raised on Radio, but I don't have a problem with that.
Well, that's good because that's indeed what we're doing today. And well, there is a lot to unpick with this particular album, and I'm sure we'll get to that as we go along. But we're coming at it today, of course, by way of the random foreplay, which is where classic rock is curated by chaos, is my new catchphrase for it. So for those of you who are new to this strange but fun format, basically I'm going to put the album on shuffle, and from a few random choices each time round, we will select four songs to highlight and to prompt us in our discussions of the album in full. So let's kick off nice and early with the song tonight. And Tim, are you ready to make your first choice?
Oh, yes.
Excellent. So Tim will have a choice of three songs for our first song of the night, and those are going to be the title track, Raised on Radio, Why Can't This Night Go On Forever, or Suzanne.
Definitely Suzanne. That's a fantastic song.
Excellent. And it is, well, we'll get into it after we've heard it probably, but it's I'm going to call it the overlooked single from this album.
Yeah, it definitely it's not on it wasn't on the first greatest hits album, though it was a top 20 single. And yeah, it's just a great performance from everyone involved.
Absolutely. So for those who haven't been with us before, there will be an extended version of this video where you can hear the songs along with us. And if you haven't revisited Raised on Radio in quite some time yourself, then I would advise doing that. Or if you need to journey at all, which seems highly unlikely, but you never know. Otherwise, if you want to just stay for the chat, then, well, stick around here, basically. As we kick off with a fine choice from Tim. This is Journey doing a Toto and going with the girl name song. It's Suzanne, and it sounds like this. All right. Fine choice to kick us off
I
there.
love the stutter at the end of that with the drums, the do. It's a simple thing, but it's a hook. You listen for it.
Yeah. This whole album is so hook heavy from start to finish, really. And that's one of three songs on the album as well where Neil Schon doesn't get a co-writing credit, but what a solo on that from him.
Neil always knows just what to play. It's the simplicity that really works here. Yeah, it's just a brilliant song. It's a shame it doesn't get the radio play that a lot of their other songs do. Songs that didn't chart as high as this one. So,
yeah, and yeah. I mean, this is an album that has four top 20 singles on it, but when it came to the greatest hits, there's kind of one biggest song off most of the albums that didn't get onto that collection because they had so many to put on it. But
yeah,
this didn't even make it onto the box set, Time Cubed, or whatever you want to call it.
It did make it onto the Greatest Hits 2, which came out many years later. So they kind of righted the ship there. But yeah, what a great song. And I think another reason why the songs from this album don't get the play is because none of them really had videos. That was kind of the whole point of this album, Raised on Radio. They were determined to not make music videos, which and they eventually put some live clips out, and those were the videos. But the first two singles came out without videos, which in 1986 was pretty risky.
Yeah,
It took a band like Journey to be able to do it. And I guess Van Halen did it too with 5150. They didn't do any videos either. It was just live footage. But
yeah, and Boston as well with Amanda
Boston,
being, I think, a
that
number
that's
one
right.
single without a video was
Yeah,
so rare.
yeah, very rare, very rare. I mean, it was the norm at this time. But to, in Journey's defense, their forays into music video weren't always the best. So,
Yeah, I think the ghosts of Separate Ways was probably at the back of their minds, thinking, "Do we really want to do another one of those?"
yeah, I mean that's just the best known one. All is somebody, and I get a kick out of the old videos, but people that haven't seen them, go watch the Chain Reaction video. This it's or After the Fall. They're quite amusing. In a nostalgic kind of way. But yeah, Separate Ways tends to bear the brunt of the ire of people talking about good songs with bad videos.
When to bring this up, I don't know. Let's do it now. Obviously, we have Journey cut down to a three-piece effectively on this album with Steve Perry, Jonathan Cain, and Neil Schon, of course. But for the most part, on this track and most of the album, we have Larry London on drums and, of course, Mr. American Idol himself, Randy Jackson on bass.
Yeah.
Um, when did this album actually come into your life, Tim? Were you a
Well,
fan already at this point,
yeah,
or?
well, the interesting thing is that this was the first Journey album that came out as I was sort of actively listening to the radio, when I'd started really paying attention to the radio. So, you know, 84 into 1985 is really when I started to listen to the top 40 and pay attention to who was singing which songs, and starting to gather all of the music minutia that resides in my solar plexus to this day. Because, it had been, all the Frontier singles came and went by 1983. So I wasn't really familiar with any of those songs. I am sure that uh, I must have heard "Don't Stop Believing," and I probably heard "Open Arms," but I'm not really sure about that. I do distinctly remember when Steve Perry's Street Talk album came out. I remember hearing "Oh Sherry" on the radio all that summer, and then "Foolish Heart," which is, I think, one of his best vocal performances ever. And then I
Which is
remember
saying
only,
something.
yeah, and then I remember "Only the Young" was released as a single from the Vision Quest soundtrack in early '85. So I remember when that was on the charts. That's another song that charted without a video. But yeah, I definitely remember when Raised on Radio was a brand new album, and they all of the singles that came out from that. So yeah, I was really actively paying attention at this point. And it is a shame that it is a good album, but it's a compromised band lineup. You know, um, from my understanding, which amounts to watching the Behind the Music episode from VH1 and then reading all the liner notes, and a lot of songs had been kind of written with drum machines. Uh, and so, the rhythm section, great rhythm section, Steve Smith and Ross Valerie, they really didn't have the way that they describe it, they weren't in on the ground floor with the writing. They didn't write
Yeah,
as a band. Kane would come in with some parts, and Perry would come in, and the fact that Steve Perry had had a successful debut solo album, that really shifted the balance of power in Journey. He produced this album for the first time. So he's, it's
yeah,
self-producing, but ultimately he was calling the shots. So it was just a different band dynamic. They didn't have Kevin Elson or Mike Stone producing this time. And I think it has a lot more in common with Street Talk than it has in common with Escape or Frontiers. It's very pop, very R&B influenced, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but there was a definite shift.
yeah,
There weren't as many. You could always count on a Journey album to have two or three really solid rockers. There's really only one on this album. There's really only one that I
yeah,
would call a rock song. The rest are just really good sort of pop rock songs. But
yeah.
it's good.
I
It's a
agree with
good
that.
album. I just, it's a shame that, because a trio does not a band to make, especially when you have no rhythm section. So yeah, and when they went on tour, they had Randy Jackson on bass, and they hired a guy named Mike Baird on drums. And of course, that would be the last tour that Steve Perry did with them, and we're coming up on 40 years. So yeah,
Yeah,
it was very much the end of an era. And I think Journey were one of the only bands of their um, that sort of AOR sound that could have survived. a lot of their contemporaries their album sales were sort of going south. Doesn't mean they weren't still producing great music, but when you think about
Mm.
Toto and 38 Special and Loverboy and REO Speedwagon and Survivor, all of those bands were going from platinum to gold to not certifying at all. I think Journey could have rode that out. And I think the fact that that greatest hits came out in 88 with no fanfare and it's gone
Mm.
on to become one of the biggest selling greatest hits albums of all time speaks to that. So I think that they are one of the few bands that stopped. They didn't have. Yes, Raised on Radio didn't sell as well as their previous albums, but still sold 2 million copies. So they kind of went
Yeah.
out on top in a
Hmm.
way.
It's not to be sniffed at, but at the same
Yeah,
time, I kind of feel like if this had done, say, twice as well, maybe that would have been enough to keep them together for another album. I don't know. But
yeah.
I
I
feel like
mean,
it's a bit of a dip. And now, in fact, it's interesting because it's still only stuck at two
yeah,
million, double
it's
platinum.
never. That's right. It's never been recertified. Whereas the greatest hits is a diamond album, and I think Escape is now a diamond album.
Yeah.
So,
And
and this one is just
I was surprised to find that it didn't actually even get double platinum until 1989. So
yeah,
it was, quite, I mean, as you say, compared to Toto and Survivor in Kansas and all those other bands whose dips were much bigger, this
yeah.
probably didn't feel like so bad a dip, but it still was compared to their heyday. And I'm interested to see, you mentioned Paul's book, that he ends the golden age of AOR in this year in
Yeah,
1986.
I think there's a lot, he kind of considers, I don't want to spoil it. It's a great read, but I think he starts in 1976 because the first Boston album is like the big bang of AOR,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, 86 is it's kind of the peak of this, this sort of music. But in the case of Journey, yeah, another thing I think that hurt is that it was over 3 years since Frontiers. That's a lifetime in the music business. If this album had come out, if this album had come out in 1985 and Only the Young was the first single and they had a tour to promote it, I think we'd be talking about much more than a double platinum album. But
Yeah.
3 years, people forget. People have short memories. I think it did well to do, to sell as well as it did. And
I think the thing, speaking of sales and things, that really surprised me with this one is it did dip massively in Canada. It barely made top 40. It did go gold, but
yeah, see,
and
that's
the
the thing
singles
that,
didn't do much
yeah,
either.
Journey weren't a band that at that time that toured up here a lot. They did. They certainly did in the early 80s, and Escape and Frontiers were successful. But yeah, their biggest success was definitely in the United States. And
Yeah.
they did better in other countries than other bands of their ilk, say. But take Australia, for example, they were kind of a non-issue.
From a New Zealand perspective, Journey have spent precisely 1 week in the New Zealand album charts.
Yeah,
that was Escape, which
yeah.
hit number 36 for a week and then was gone.
Yeah, I mean, when you
Um,
don't pay attention to that, to a part of the country, uh, that's going to happen. And they always did really well in Japan, and they always played in Japan. You'd think they could have swung by. So yeah, they did play up here, but by the time Raised on Radio, I think it was a very short, a relatively shorter tour, and I think it only lasted a few months, and then that was it. And I actually think it was cut short.
yeah, I gather that certainly Herbie Herbert was planning another run of dates, and Steve Perry just said, "Nah, I'm
Steve
done,"
Perry, yeah,
and
Steve
that was
Perry hit
it.
the brake. Yeah, Steve Perry hit the brakes on it, and the way that Jonathan Cain described it at the time, he said Neil and I, we had this big beautiful Ferrari in the garage waiting to go, but we knew who had the keys.
Yeah. All right. Well, time for song number two, and it's going to be me choosing this time. So let's hope it goes well. To start with, we'll see what my first two choices are and see where I go from there. So it could have been you or The Eyes of a Woman. Um, do I need a third between those? I'm going to take a third, and that will leave me with two later. So my third choice gives me, Positive Touch. Um, now, I've seen a lot of hate directed towards Positive Touch about one aspect of it in particular, but I think it's good that we do hear one song with Steve Smith on it. And
Mm.
hey, I used to play saxophone, so man,
Well, I mean,
on
that's
that
yeah,
basis,
that's that. You're absolutely right about that, and yet, nobody complained when Foreigner put saxophone in Urgent.
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
Uh, well, let's hear and find out. I mean, I think I know why people don't like it here, but I happen to love it. And hey, it's my show, so hey, that's the way I'm going. Yeah, positive touch. Here we go. I've got no issue with that sax solo at all. Uh,
It's kind of interesting how it never returns to the chorus again. Like once he goes to the goodbye yesterday part, that becomes the fade out. Like it's an
yeah.
interesting arrangement choice. It kind of sounds like the song that might have been on a soundtrack. Journey have done soundtrack songs before, but and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it is very 86 sounding, but great performances, great drums, a little bit of slap bass. You didn't hear that in Journey much before.
Mhm.
Little
No,
little
and I
pop and
mean
lock from
Steve's vocals are just. I
oh
mean, they always are, but
yeah,
somehow
yeah,
on this
he's
album, I feel like they're
yeah,
at another level.
he's you can tell the enthusiasm he has for this song, he's
Mm.
always had that R&B in him. He's always had that Sam Cooke, you
Oh,
know.
absolutely.
So yeah, this is a chance for him to kind of get that out. But this is not a song that you would have heard on Escape or Frontiers or anything before that. You know what I mean? Like this would have fit right in on Street Talk. So he's bringing that influence into Journey now, and it's really the only time it ever happened because, even when they did the one last album with Perry, Trial by Fire, there's none of that R&B on there, or at least not a couple of slower songs maybe, but there's no up tempo songs and there's no saxophone.
No, well, at least I mean, for the sax haters, that's I think the only track where there's sax on the title track as well. There's certainly harmonica, which is another sticking point for some. Um, but yeah, like I say, this is one of three tracks that does have Steve Smith on the drums,
Yeah.
and I yes, then because the story behind the sacking of the rhythm section always in my mind feels like it happened in one fell swoop, but maybe not because Ross Valerie's not on here at all, and Steve does do
Yeah.
something at least.
It's almost like he just happened to be the guy that plays on these songs, but not necessarily as a member of the band. There's a disconnect there, and I don't really know why that is, but it never feels like, hey, you've got four-fifths of the classic lineup on here. It doesn't feel like it.
Yeah,
It's such a
and
different. The song has got such a different feel to it too.
you've got on those same three tracks, you've got Bob Glaub on bass,
Yeah.
who of course also played on Street Talk,
Yep.
and on the other tracks that Steve's not on, you've got Larry London on drums, as we mentioned, who also played on Street Talk. So
Yep.
the accusation that gets flung around is that this is really a Steve Perry solo album, and those kind of factors point towards that to a degree. But at the same time, you've got obviously Jonathan Cain and Neil Schon co-writing just about everything
Yeah.
here.
Well, the other thing is that this, Herbie Herbert, their late manager, had a long-term vision for this band, and this album broke a lot of his plans. For one thing, he wanted this album to be called Freedom,
Yeah,
because up until then, yeah, let's say eventually used. What I think is funny about that is that Santana had an album in '87 called Freedom. Um, but they had all those one-word album titles with the very distinctive art. I mean, this artwork is really cool. It was actually designed by Prairie Prince, drummer for the Tubes, and formerly drummer for Journey, before Ainsley
indeed.
Dunbar. But it's a different look. It's a very, very unique album in their catalog, and I think it's one that I like to go back to, but it's never been a favorite. Although when I listen to it, I'm like, this is good. How, it's Journey. How bad could it be? It's there's a certain level of
Yeah,
quality there. But yeah, this album was, and it was hard to get out. It took a long time to get out, and there were a lot of reasons for that. And they're probably lucky that they got one more album out before the hiatus.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it feels like looking into that period, it was kind of touch and go as to whether even this album would be a thing. And
Yeah,
I think probably Neil and Jonathan Cain were pushing for it more and really having to convince Steve Perry to do it. And
to
then maybe
finish the
that is
album
why
and
he got the
then
control.
to do the tour even,
Yeah.
which the live clips I've seen of it are good, but it's not really classic Journey.
And, I understand why some people are a bit down on this album, whether they're for musical reasons or just the whole behind the scenes drama of it all, but it's always been pretty high up on my list of Journey albums. And of course, like most things, I came to it after the fact by quite a distance because this might actually amuse you. The fact, as I mentioned, in New Zealand, Journey were nothing at all. The first time I ever heard of them, I'm sure you're familiar with the All Music Guide.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so that's, of course, been a website for decades now, but I first encountered it in book form. And it was William Rawman's review of Isolation that he pegged Fergie as a Steve Perry clone and the album as a Journey clone album. And I was like, I've never heard of these people. I must check this out. And
Yeah,
I
I
don't agree with
remember
his
reading
assessment,
that,
but
which I don't agree with. And Isolation happens to be my favorite Toto album. I think if Fergie sounds like anybody, he has always reminded me of John Anderson.
well, no, that can't be, as I can't abide John Anderson.
Well, he had that really that really high. It didn't have the R&B in it that
No,
Steve
no,
Perry
you're
had.
absolutely right.
But
Yeah.
but we agree, Isolation is a fantastic Toto album. But I don't I've never saw any correlation. Like I think that both Toto and Jer they were doing their own thing.
It's quite interesting that Toto's 1986 album Fahrenheit would be a much more R&B driven poppy album as well
Even
compared
more
to
so. Yeah, even more so. Like I've described Fahrenheit as, and I like the record. I like it a lot. But I've described it as an album by a rock band that doesn't have any rock songs on it. I mean, it really doesn't when you think about it.
yeah. Oh, it's super solid.
It's very pop. Yeah. But I mean, it's got some of my favorite Toto songs on there. No,
Yeah.
I think the seventh one is a lot better, but we're not talking about Toto tonight, although maybe we
No, no.
should.
We always end up talking about Toto because why
Yeah.
wouldn't you? But
Yeah.
we will maybe circle back to Fahrenheit later in the year. We'll see. Might have. I mean, I'm sure I would have got to them eventually, but that gave me
Now,
a
when you
nudge.
started listening to them, did you listen to them and go, "Oh, I know this song and I know this song. I just didn't know who sang them," or was it all new to you?
No, all brand new, including "Don't Stop Believing" at that point in time,
Wow.
and
I mean,
this is late '90s.
I can believe that because, like I said, their success was primarily a U.S. thing, and some bands think that if you've made it in the U.S., you've made it everywhere. Which, yes, it's a big country and you could sell a lot of albums there, but there's a whole wide world out there.
Yeah, funnily enough, when I eventually got Trial by Fire, I realized that I had heard a Journey song on the radio, and it was When You Love a Woman, which must have got
Okay,
some play for whatever reason. But
yeah.
speaking of songs we like, it's time for you to choose one, I hope. So I shall give you three options and see where we go. So those are going to be I'll Be All Right Without You. So you could probably tell from that opening note.
Yep.
Uh, Be Good to Yourself or Once You Love Somebody.
You know, I'm tempted to go with Once You Love Somebody because I think that's a good album track and people should hear it. But and I love Be Good to Yourself because like I said, it's probably like the one real rock song on this album. But I'll Be All Right Without You is one of my favorite Journey songs. I think it's a fantastic mid-tempo sort of R&B ballad. I love Neil's clean guitar sound he uses on this. He doesn't do a lot of pyrotechnics, but what he does is just right. Great Perry vocal performance and great harmonies, as always. Fantastic Journey
Absolutely.
harmonies and a um, great drum performance. And it really picks up speed towards the end as Neil's soloing, where I think it's Larry London. He's going back and forth between the snare and then hitting the snare and the floor tom, and it's got a lot of bottom end to it. Great bass playing on it. I think it's must be Randy Jackson on this one.
Yeah.
No, really, really solid rhythm section on this track. So yeah, I got to go with "I'll Be All Right
Excellent.
Without You."
Well, we will do that in a second. I'll just say, of course, I first heard this on the Greatest Hits album, which was a remix. But to my ears, at least, when I
It,
first heard this version, I was like, this is so much more alive than the remix is. So
well,
why did they change it in the
it's
first
the
place?
greatest hits version is also the edit. It's slightly shorter because if you'll notice, it gets to the vocal sooner. This does another bar of that intro. But that's one
Right.
difference. But yeah, I'm sure it was remixed or something of that note.
All right. Well, here we go. This is the full original album version of I'll Be All Right Without You. Here we go.
It's got that classic, let the guitar solo fade the song out, right? Like Who's Crying Now or um, yeah.
Yeah. I like. Um, what they did with the live version of that. They had the
Yes, very much like,
little coda.
yeah, yeah. They actually end it with that little vocal bit. But
I don't know
it's
if that
funny.
was is that because I can never tell with Steve Perry because he often throws back to stuff like even pre-Beatles things and things that I'm not so familiar with. So I wasn't sure if that is a reference to an old song or if that is just something that they wrote to end the song to play it live. I don't know if you
I don't know.
would
I
know.
don't know if that's him riffing on an old, I always say Sam Cooke because I know that's his biggest influence. And
Yeah,
if
I
you
mean
ever hear
it's
listen to enough Sam Cooke, you can hear it. Like, whoa, whoa, like all that stuff.
mm,
You can definitely hear where he got that from. But it's funny that we were, here I'm going to bring up Toto again. That's probably one Journey song that I could hear Toto do.
that seems like a fair assessment to me, and it's another, you know, I'm chart stats to the max me, but so this was the fourth single, but just like the fourth single from Street Talk, it ended up being the second highest charting. So it made 14 after the previous two had done 17. And I
Yeah.
guess that might be why they then plumped for the first time and indeed only time for a fifth single, which was, of course, Why Can't This Night Go On Forever, which ended that run and only got as far as number 60. But I always find it interesting when bands, or maybe should we say record labels, push it one single too far and just have one that goes not really anywhere.
I don't know if that was a result of the tour being prematurely cut short, and the label was like, "This could be the last record we get out of these guys. Let's
Mm.
let's put out another single."
Milk it.
And really, it's probably the most traditional Journey sounding song on the album. It leans a little bit. It leans a lot on Faithfully. It's got that dun, 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 dun. It's got that same sort of cadence to the piano. Um,
Yeah.
but it's like the one song on Raised on Radio that wouldn't have sounded out of place on either of the previous ones. I don't know
And
why
again,
it
it's
charted. I do remember hearing it on the radio, but not a lot. So that
mm,
makes sense for a song that didn't even make it halfway up the chart. But I mean, also, I think the record had been out for a year at this point. That's, not everybody can be Def Leppard and be on the charts for 2 years with one singles from one
no.
album. So, but I mean, I like it well enough. It's not my favorite Journey ballad, but it's good. And Perry delivers as usual. What's interesting is that um, well, it kind of they kind of shorten it by not having um not reprising the title line again
Mhm.
and going right into the end solo. So it's a relatively short song for this type of
Yeah,
song.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, I was glad that you picked I'll Be All Right Without You there because, well, I mean, any of those three would have been fun by me. But like I say, it's one of those albums where really there's nothing I dislike, and the only thing I'm a bit on would be the title track because one of the things, I mean, musically it's all right, but and Steve did this on Street Talk as well on Captured by the Moment. He gets into this kind of nostalgic thing lyrically, which I
Yeah.
think
I think Captured
if
by the
there's
Moment is a much better song.
oh, absolutely, it's a brilliant
Yeah.
song. It's probably my
Yeah.
favorite from Street
But yeah,
Talk. But
yeah, Raised on Radio borders on novelty, right?
yeah, it's
You
a
know,
little
it's
bit.
like you guys are,
How many references can we
yeah,
squeeze into the song and
and even
references that
musically,
our teen audience are not going to know?
well, who's gonna know Maybelline and Blueberry Hill and yeah, it's almost like, come on, you guys are much too good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a little fun, but Raised on Radio would have made a good B-side.
Hmm.
It would have been like, hey, that's fun. There's a different song on, but it doesn't make sense as an album track. There were songs that were floating around in the ether that they didn't finish, and some of them ended up on the Time 3 box set. Like I think one's called With a Tear and Into Your Arms. I mean, I would have liked to have heard finished versions of those with vocals,
Vocals,
but
yeah.
yeah, Raised on Radio would, yeah, that'd probably be. That's not one I would have. I don't know what combination of three would make me pick that one. I don't think there is one.
Yeah, no. Likewise, even if I got it in a two, it would always be the other one.
Yeah.
Um, but it's I guess it's the second closest thing to a rocker as well on this
There's
album, which is
nothing wrong with
not
it
in its favor.
whatsoever. It's just, yeah, it is. It's kind of that throw. It's kind of got a throwaway feel to it, like, brains on autopilot.
It's like I've renamed the album. Now we need a song to go with it. What have we got? Not very much, but this will do.
Yeah, yeah. It's not their finest moment. It's not their worst, but it's not their finest.
I mean, it's no back talk.
I like Back to Frontiers is my favorite Journey album.
Well, likewise, but I'd scratch that song right off it. I mean, as it was originally meant to be. But we're not talking about that album today, so we won't go there. Um, but we will go to a final selection, and anyone who's been paying attention and knows this album will know what my choice is going to be between. Unfortunately, I'm not one of the people who's been paying attention, so I'm going to have to find out, and that means skating past the options I gave you earlier. So I'll just let I'll be over. I'll be over you. I can't stop talking Toto.
There you go.
Be all right with that. That's gone. Be
Yeah.
good to yourself, Scott. And once you love somebody, so that therefore leaves me with the choice between Girl Can't Help It or Happy to Give. And I know, like you, my instinct is not to go for a single, but I would probably say that Happy to Give is my 10th favorite on the album, just ahead of the title track. So I am going to go for single number three, and indeed, as you mentioned earlier, the first one that they did the live video for, which did get, I believe, fairly substantial MTV play, but didn't get it above 17, which the previous single reached without a video. So who knows? But it's also fun to end on the opening track of an album. So let's do that and finish us off today with "The Girl Can't Help It."
Nothing stands between love and
And there's that proper ending that we missed from "I'll Be All Right Without You." See, I got it right this time.
Yeah. And another the it's a really good recording. I mean, the production is aged well. It doesn't have that super saturated, like they call a wet drum sound, right? Which a lot of albums around this time did. It's very clean. And the only thing I want to add about Girl Can't Help It is that I love the studio version, but I love the ad lib that Steve Perry does on the live version right before the second chorus, like when they're missing each other, the way he sings it in the live version,
Right.
killer, just killer.
Okay.
Yeah. Fortunately,
Yeah.
that's available on the box set, that live recording, or if you get the reissue of Raised on Radio. But great pop rock song. I mean, um, yeah, again, it doesn't get the play. Like none of these singles get the play that
No,
anything that the previous, you know, album
they
singles
don't.
did.
And I mean, we're looking at you know, 25 to 30 million streams for the biggest songs on this album on Spotify, which is, you know, I mean, Don't Stop Believing aside, which is its own phenomenon.
Right.
It's heading towards 3 billion, believe it or not. But Separate Ways, I think even older stuff like Lights in the Middle of the Sky and certainly Open Arms, Faithfully, those are all the hundreds of millions of
Yeah.
streams. But I was a little bit surprised, I have to say. I don't know if you're aware of this, but they clearly did a Junie audit at the RIAA a couple of years ago. And the last two songs that we just heard, in fact, Girl Can't Help It and I'll Be All Right Without You, have been certified gold.
Yeah, they have. I
Um,
noticed that they do have a lot of certified singles, which is really
and yet Be
interesting.
Good to Yourself has not, which
And it
is the
was and
bigger
it was
hit
the highest
officially.
doesn't mean anything, right? I mean, Lights and Wheel in the
Yeah.
Sky get all kinds of radio play. Neither of those songs hit the top 40. Um, Any Way You Want It gets more airplay than any of the Raised on Radio hits, and I think it
Mm.
peaked at 23. So it doesn't always mean a song's popularity at its time doesn't always translate. Sometimes it does, but I mean, don't stop believing peaked at number 9. It was not the most successful song
Mm.
off Escape, and yet I no. If I have to be completely honest, I need never hear Don't Stop Believing again. Radio, television, they've completely ruined that song for me. And it's a shame because it's a remarkable song, and there are so many things about it that break all sorts of traditions for hit singles. It's not super repetitive. The chorus doesn't happen until the end of the song. It breaks all kinds of rules. It's not a straight 4/4 drum beat. It's a very unique arrangement. It's just as soon as that piano comes on, it's like, why couldn't they play another? Give this one a break. Give it like a 5-year moratorium and play other songs instead, please.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole show on the songs that are overplayed, but at the same time, if there's only one song that your band is known for, it might as well at least be a good one. So
Well, that's
there's
another
that.
thing that kind of irks me about that because it almost makes it, I'm sure there are some people that think that's their only hit. Yeah.
I'm just glad that it wasn't Open Arms that got the treatment. So
I'll
yeah.
agree with you there. I'll agree with you there. That's never been a favorite. That has never been a favorite of mine. I mean, as far as the ballads go, I think Faithfully is much better than Open Arms, and it didn't even hit the top 10. So
Yeah, there you go. If only people in the 80s had, you know, predicted what our tastes would be ahead of time. But,
I know, but you know what? I mean, like there are songs that were hits that I would love to hear more of, like Send Her My Love, After the Fall. Those are great songs. They just kind of get overlooked.
yeah, I mean,
The
well,
party's over.
wow, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the list goes on, and then you
yeah,
get into the deep cuts.
yeah,
Uh, and again, so many to choose from there. And we got a nice mix today. Well, we actually got three singles, which is pretty unusual for us. And we also got the first three songs from the album, surprisingly,
yeah.
uh, in a strange order, of course, because that's the way we roll in this random fashion. But a nice way to revisit the album. And I don't know if we will have changed anybody's minds on it. I dare say not, but hopefully people listen with open ears after all this time if they do have preconceptions. And as you say, it's not your typical journey. You've only really got one rocker and really only one ballad, and the rest is in that pop rock vein. But they do it so well. I would have loved to see
Yes.
what they could have come up with them if they moved on in a slightly different direction and done another album together a couple of years later. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it
You
wasn't to
wonder what a
be.
Journey album in 89 or 90 would have sounded like, right? We'll never know. We get hints of it with like The Storm and Bad English, but it's not the same.
Yeah. And just before we wrap things up, because of course we have mentioned the tour and Mike Baird joining on the drum kit for that. He gets, along with some of the songs, he gets a bit of a bad rap from certain quarters, and I just have to say, bringing up Toto once again, uh, if you're a guy who Jeff Porcaro will say, "You've hired me, but you've got the wrong guy. You need to get Mike Baird in." I think that speaks for itself.
That
So
should be the end of the conversation. That's right. If one of those guys gives you the go ahead, okay, well, obviously, yeah. I don't think it would have mattered who they got at the time. I think it was just like, why is it not Steve Smith? I think if Ainsley Dunbar had come back, it would have been like, why is it not Steve Smith?
probably only a core of real devotee Journey fans who would have known the difference. There's,
Yeah, that's it.
you
That's
know,
the other thing. If you got Perry up front, okay, well, there's the guitar player, there's the keyboard player, right? Yeah. Sadly, yeah, they weren't a band of. I mean, I hate this term, but I mean, the critics love the term faceless corporate rock.
mm,
And it's just not true. I mean, but they
yeah,
weren't necessarily people knew Steve Perry because he had, a couple of really big solo hits, but they weren't a band people knew by name. They may have known,
yeah.
well, that doesn't look like the guy that's normally there, but whatever.
And Neil Schon is one of those highly underrated guys. I mean,
Absolutely, because of the nature
his talent is,
of Journey's music, towards more of the pop rock side of things, people don't realize what an incredible all-around guitarist he was. I mean, all they have to do is
yeah,
look up his history. When he was 15 or 16, he had to choose between either joining Derek and the Dominoes or Santana. So he was a
mm,
unnaturally gifted from an early age. And I would invite anybody who dismisses Journey as a pop band to give a listen to their first three albums, which were the pre Steve Perry albums, which are much more like prog rock in nature. Um,
mm,
Totally different sounding albums, but I love them, and I love because I really like Greg Raleigh as a vocalist. I always liked his vocals. He had a really cool kind of vocal approach, and I really liked after Perry joined when they would trade off vocals like
yeah,
just the same way, and that's something that's Jonathan Cain may have been a quote unquote better songwriter or a different kind of songwriter or a more pop oriented songwriter, but he's not a good singer. Greg Raleigh was the better singer. So I like
mm,
that combo of Perry and Raleigh, but they wouldn't have had the songs. I mean, Cain brought the songs that brought them into the top 10. So that's a
yeah.
fact.
You can't deny that. And
Yeah.
I'm not. Well, I think the whole thing that lingers with this album is that removal of the classic rhythm section. But
Yeah.
honestly, in the last 40 years, they've done worse things to each other than that
Oh
as
my
well. So
goodness.
it's,
One of the most dysfunctional and continues to be, right? Considering they
yeah.
make some of the most positive, upbeat music of any rock band, it's pretty crazy how dysfunctional they are for sure.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim, for joining me for this. It's been great fun and always good to have you rolling by. thanks out there for watching, and do let us know what you thought of our song choices and whether your view of this album has changed or solidified over the course of the past hour or so. If we haven't convinced you that this is a real Journey album, then there might be something for the Greg Rowley days floating about around my head about now for you to check out instead. So I will just say thanks for watching and bye for now, but I hope not for long.
It's the end, but the moment has been prepared for.